Okay, so we are done with the three components: ARM, EAM, and BRM. The most important topic, and people consider this to be the most complex topic as well. ARM, Access Request Management, because this is a combination, or you can integrate remaining all three components with this component especially, because the main concept here what we follow is workflow concept. So we use workflow everywhere. In access risk analysis we have to use workflow. In EAM we have to use workflow. In BRM also I have shown you role approval workflow, etc. So in every component we'll talk about workflow. So that workflow configuration will be done here. So this is the component which will be implemented at last always. It cannot be implemented in the first go. Only when all the three components are done, then only you can go for the configuration of this particular component called ARM. Right. So coming to the previous names of it. So in Versa 4.0, it was referred to as Access Enforcer. And then in GRC Access Control 5.3, it is referred to as Compliant User Provisioning. Compliant here. Compliant in the sense following rules and regulations. It comes from the word compliance. GRC. C stands for compliance. So compliance means abiding rules and laws, regulations, sticking to them, following them is called as compliant. Compliant user provisioning. User provisioning is something like providing access to user and setting up the user in the SAP system is called as user provisioning. Okay, so doing that user provisioning in a compliant way. So that was the meaning of compliant user provisioning. It was in 5.3. Now coming to 10 and 10.1, it is now referred to as access request management. So anything related to access request, how do you manage that? So it is actually more than user provisioning. Hence it has been renamed. We can automate, or we can design workflow not only for user provisioning, for also other activities also. Right. So now what is this main topic about? ARM will take care of these two main things. ARM will take care of the below: automate the approvals through workflow, and then auto provisioning, auto user maintenance especially. So auto provisioning means it's nothing but automatic user maintenance, user creation, deletion, modification, assignment of roles, locking, unlocking, everything can be automated. So automate approvals through workflow, the first part, and second part is auto provisioning. So these are the two important things what we'll be discussing in this concept. Now coming to what is the advantages of automation. So no time delays. So it will follow as per the workflow, because we'll be setting a SLA time, and as per the SLA time the request will be approved. If it is not approved within the time, so that we have some escalation matrix which will be escalated, and that can be addressed, which is not being done in time. So no time delays is first advantage. Reduction of errors, because there are many human errors that are being done which can be avoided through automation. Human errors can be avoided. So generally it is not deliberate errors what we do. We may do that errors accidentally. So the errors which we do accidentally can be completely avoided through automation. And the third advantage is enforce that process can be followed. Process should be followed basically. Enforcing every user to follow the process while doing certain tasks. So there are many rules and regulations, but there is no guarantee that a person follows them. So but here in this case, through automation we can enforce them to follow them. So this is all about the advantages of automation and ARM component introduction part. Okay, clear so far? Now we'll go inside. Like I'll take an example why we need to go for ARM. So in this example, you can see user administration, which includes user creation, user modification, and user deletion. These are the tasks which we do on regular basis from SAP security side. And there is some process to be followed for user administration, like creation or modification or deletion. These are the some, most of the companies follow this process. Like user has to fill the SAP access form for creation or modification. And in some cases, in some companies, even for deletion also, user has access form has to be filled. The deletion access form has to be filled. And second step is it has to be approved by reporting manager. And third step, it has to be approved by role owner for the roles user is requesting. And security team will create or modify and delete user as per the request. So these are the 4 steps generally involved in any company regarding the user creation or modification. Now, how can you ensure that security team is following this process, or the end user is following it? Because the first 3 steps are not in our hands. User filling the form is in the hands of user. Approving by reporting manager is in the hands of manager as well as the user. User has to request for approval. Manager has to approve it. And then again user has to request for role owner and it has to be approved by role owner. So 1, 2, 3 steps are not in our hands, security team hands. Only the 4th step will be in the hands of security. Now the loophole what I'm talking here is, a security team guy, any resource in security team can skip step 1, 2, 3 and directly create a user ID in SAP system without a form, without manager approval, and without role owner approval. Still a security guy can create a user ID or not. Technically I'm asking. If he decides there is no rule such regulations, I can create an ID in SAP production system without access form, without a manager approval, and then without a role owner. So everybody accept with the statement?
Yeah. Because he has access, so he can create.
Anand, be allowed.
Yeah.
Voice is low.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, he has access. So sometime wrongly he may create a user without access form.
Wrongly means it is his duty to check whether access form has been filled or not. Sometimes
Yeah.
because of
By mistake,
forcement. Yeah.
is there chances to create means without access form also? Because all the consultant cannot follow the process, right? Some consultant they do mistake.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Those are human errors basically.
Yes, human error.
Sometimes because of pressure as well. Some pressure in the sense, your reporting manager or a senior manager comes to your desks and he asks, create my ID or assign a role to me. And we cannot, sometimes he will not be a new resources like security who are freshers, cannot ask them for a form. Please fill the form and come back to us. So such cases happens. So how to avoid all such cases? User skipping, security resources skipping 1, 2, 3 and then doing the 4th step directly. So give a solution for this. How will you do this now? Anyone? Only when step 1, 2, 3 are done, then only 4 should be done. That is my requirement.
User creation is manual, it is not possible.
Pardon?
You cannot. No, if the user creation is manual,
Okay.
we are not sure.
Yes, correct. If user creation is manual.
We cannot follow
So
that.
here the question is not manual or automated. I will say
Okay.
if I have access to SU01, I can create an ID. If I don't have access to SU01, I cannot create an ID. As simple as that.
Yes, yes, correct.
So if a security team, what
Yeah,
I propose is remove SU01 create access, modification access in SAP production system for security team. That is a proposal.
Okay.
Completely removing SAP user IDs maintenance access in production systems to security team. Just to give SU01 display access, SU01D access. In that case, even some pressure comes on the resource, he cannot do mistake accidentally also because he does not have access to it. But the question is, if we give only display access to security team, that too in production system, how do we maintain users if necessary comes? Who will be creating users? Who will be maintaining the users, assigning roles, etc.? So the GRC system will do it automation. That is what auto provisioning concept is. So GRC auto provisioning concept is nothing but GRC system automatically creates the user in the backend system, assigns the roles in the backend system, etc. So ideally saying security team does not need access to SU01, but we provide access to SU01 because in emergency conditions, if system fails to work, if GRC system fails to work or auto provisioning has been cancelled or there is some mistake in auto provisioning, then GRC will not work, then we have to do it manually. Like at least password resets, locking, unlocking tasks should be done without approvals and all those things. In that case, we need SU01 access. So ideally speaking, we do not need SU01 access if GRC is fully implemented. Right. So this is the answer. The GRC is a solution. How can you ensure the above process is not violated? So through automation and workflow designing, the answer is solution. And not only for user administration, we can do automation and workflow designing for the following. So user creation, process for user administration. There are two cases here we have, non-HR and HR system. So if you have a HR system, there would be a different set of processes we follow, and if there is no HR system, generally we follow a different process. So that I'll explain you later, and the workflow will be little bit vary in case of HR and non-HR. And then role approval. We have seen this in BRM. In BRM, when we are using the default methodology, we have a step called request approval. So I have shown you when we click on the request approval, the system says MSMP workflow is not designed. So this is where we design the workflow for it. And regarding the function maintenance, risk maintenance, and one more you have role. Yeah. So function maintenance in the sense, in access risk analysis, whenever a risk ID, whenever a function is newly created or existing function is modified. Or now coming to risk maintenance, if you are modifying the global rule set or existing custom rule set, like modification of a risk, adding a new risk, etc. So then some approval has to be taken. And then firefighter log report review. In firefighter concept, we get the logs, EAM logs. We have shown you how to pull the log reports. Those reports will be sent to controller, and controller have to review it. So it goes to the reviewer as a ticket, and that has to be checked, and he has to close the ticket. So we are ensuring that controller is reviewing the logs of firefighter. Clear, everyone? So see, in the concept which we discussed is firefighter ID controller will receive the log. So what is the guarantee that he is reviewing the logs? So what we do here is, through this workflow concept, we will send that firefighter log report as a ticket. So on daily basis, he gets so many tickets from different firefighter IDs usages. He has to review each and every ticket, and he has to close it. or give his comments there. So if he is giving his comments, means that is a proof that he has attended it. So that is how we can make forcing the controller to review the logs. Because people, when see why we have to follow all these things, workflow, people do not follow the rules and regulations. When people do not follow the rules and regulations, we have to force them to follow them. So that is what we are doing here. And coming to risk analysis, we have two concepts called as SOD review and user access review. We will discuss more detail about this in the when that particular topic comes. Access review. Access review. Review means what? Review is nothing but validation. You are doing a validation of the access given to a user. Like suppose a user has 10 roles access which contains multiple T codes. So what do you mean by review of that access? In sense that access, whatever is provided to the user, is it being completely used by the user, or some of the T codes may not be relevant today. They were relevant or they were used by the user in some situation, and today they are not being used by the user. So that is called as user access review. And SOD review is like a total risk count. How many SOD risks are there in the organization, and you have to review them. Our final goal is to reduce the count of the SOD risk every year. You have a target, annual target, to reduce the count to 0. The final ideal situation is 0, not having a risk at any user. So to achieve that goal, we'll try to do this SOD review. And coming to mitigation control, in mitigation control, our duty is to create mitigation controls and then assigning mitigation controls to users. So maintenance, basically maintenance of mitigation controls and assignments. So these are total 10 types of workflows can be designed in ARM. 10 types. So these are the 10 types. You can see the descriptions of them. 10 types, like access request approval workflow, access request approval for HR OM objects workflow, and then control assignment approval workflow, mitigation control maintenance workflow. So it is both third and fourth are related to mitigation controls. Firefighter log report review, function approval, risk approval, role approval, SOD review, and user access review. Total 10 types, you can say. So these workflow types are workflows, whatever we have in ARM part, are referred as process IDs. So you can see the heading here, process ID. So wherever you get the word process IDs, just think about this workflow type. Just rename, or you can treat that as a workflow type. Right. Now the entire ARM configuration is done in the below path. These paths: GRC access control, workflow for access control, and then GRC access control, user provisioning. So in this place we design the workflow, and in this place we make the access form customization, and then related to auto provisioning concept. I said two things. ARM will take care of two things: automate approvals through workflow. So that is this is for workflow concept. So this path is for workflow designing. Entire workflow configuration is done here. And for your auto provisioning, I can divide like this. For auto provisioning, the entire configuration is done here. So this is what you can say. Simply remember. Clear, everyone? So before going ahead, we'll go into system now and check it. So any doubts, the theoretical concepts regarding this topic ARM? First I will go to the auto provisioning part, and then we'll go to the workflow concept. What is the auto provisioning settings and configuration to be done? Okay, right, let me go to that particular part. So auto provisioning part, let us go to this path now. So under access control, this part, user provisioning, so that is the path name. Under AAC, user provisioning. Yeah, under user provisioning, the very first one, which is called as maintain settings for HR trigger. So this heading, maintain settings for HR trigger. So what do you mean by HR trigger first of all, and what settings we have to do here? Okay, so just I'll explain you this diagram. So diagrammatically, if you understand the concept, that is better. So imagine we have a HR system, and the business or the company is using SAP HR system to manage their business, to maintain employees there, to manage their employee data. Okay, so a company internally, any that can be IT company or any other client company, any sort of company, if they are using HR system also to maintain their local employees data, so in that case how this feature can be used, HR triggers concept can be used. Okay, so whenever a new user joins in the organization, or you can say existing user is getting transferred from one location to other location, or a user is leaving the organization, any changes done to the your employer, so all the changes will be done in the system, GRC system here, sorry, HR system. New user joined the organization, existing user has got transferred, user left the organization, termination of the employee. Okay, so in every aspect there is a HR master record, changes will be done in the HR system. So HR team will change the change has to be done in the HR master records of an employee. Whatever these three changes, any change happens in the HR system, that will initiate a HR trigger, and this HR trigger is responsible for creating the request in the GRC system. So this HR trigger will create the access request in the GRC system. Now you can imagine, actually, if HR system is not there, or the HR triggers is not concept is not there, end user logins into GRC, and he will go to, as I told you already, he'll go to my home, click on access request, and then he fills the access form. Basically, this is how general process will be. The end user himself will fill the access form. But if HR triggers is concept is configured, the end user need not log in into GRC and create the access request. Instead of user, this HR trigger will initiate the request in the GRC system, and then further user will be created in ECC, BW, finance, and even in HR system also, if required. If that user requires any access in HR system also, that is also through GRC system only. Back to this, another path will be there for creation of users in HR system. So I'm talking about different record here. HR master record means that is not SU01 record. Don't get confused. HR team will create the HR master records. Through GRC, we will create SU01 records in HR system if user needs access to HR system, and similarly the other systems as well. Okay, clear everyone the concept?
Sridhar, could you please repeat once again? This
Okay.
HR system triggers.
See, generally this is the process, right? User logins into GRC, he fills the access form, correct?
Yes.
If HR trigger concept is configured successfully, end user need not log in into GRC. and the access form will get submitted when a new HR master record is created in HR system. That will trigger a new account type, request type as new account. Whenever an existing user has got transferred, that will trigger as change account. Whenever in HR system a user left the organization, so that will trigger a delete account. So the request is automatically created.
So this update of new user requests or existing user records in HR system will be done by this HR team usually, or it will be done by security people?
No, HR master record means that is HR people only.
Okay.
Do you have experience in HR security?
No, no, I don't have.
Okay, so like we call that HR master data. Master data means what? The data which doesn't change generally. Like example, his PAN card number, his date of birth, family details, spouse, etc. All these details will not change, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
they're constant.
that data is called as master data. So that data HR teams store in HR system, correct?
Yeah,
As a record. So when a new record is created, that is triggering a new request in new account in request in GRC. Whenever that HR record is modified as transferring or promotion or whatever it might be, that will trigger a change account. And when user leaves the organization, when the HR master record is deleted from the system, that will trigger the delete account in the GRC system.
Sridhar, okay, agreed.
Yeah,
But if at all a new employee has joined an organization, so each and every employee need not have an SAP account, right? See, if at all we talk about housekeeping people,
hmm.
so they may join the organization. So even they are also employees, but they don't come under this access related, uh, system access information and all. So though an entry is created, how the triggers will differentiate this access?
See, no, I mean to say every user, I'm saying they are using the SAP system for their end user purpose only, right?
Yes,
Let us take a example of DMart. You know DMart, I guess, right? So DMart
yeah,
has implemented SAP. Who is a end user DMart in end user in DMart store?
I mean the customers.
Not customers, end user I'm talking about. Who uses SAP in DMart?
Okay, the billing people.
The store manager, the cashier, the billing some guy, sales department guy, etc., etc., will use SAP system, correct?
Yes,
So when a store manager joins the organization, the DMart HR team will create a HR master record. Okay,
okay,
that will trigger a new account request because he needs access to all the systems of ECC and all those things where he can go and do his daily duties. The store manager has to log in into BW, prepare the reports, sales reports, and etc., etc. He
okay.
has to exist in systems, SAP systems, correct?
Yes, yes.
He also needs to in HR system also for maintenance of his to see his payroll, to see his pay slip. The user has to, the store manager has to exist in HR system also, so that he clicks on the pay slip tab and he can see the pay slip. That data will be pulled from HR system.
Okay, sure, fine.
Anybody else? Any doubt here?
Yes, Sridhar.
Yeah,
The HR master record, I mean, Poner and all will be created in the HR system,
correct.
right? But then you said the SU01 recorded is again created by us.
If needed for the user.
Okay, so you mean all the records which are created in the HR master, I mean record,
Huh.
are not replicated in SU01 as well. Is
Obviously,
that
see,
what you want to say?
exactly.
Acha.
Because there are, suppose TCS now, TCS has 1 lakh employees in India, more than 1 lakh employees in India. and if TCS is using SAP HR system, all 1 lakh employees will have HR master records. Okay,
Yes.
but all 1 lakh will not have SU01 records. Correct?
Oh, okay.
Got my point?
But then how will they get roles and everything?
No, no. I mean to say, I'm talking about HR system. In HR system, 1 lakh employees will have HR master records in HR system. Correct? That is true statement, right? Will you accept the statement?
Oh,
Because he is
correct.
an employee of TCS. If he is an employee of TCS, he will have an employee ID, and that employee ID will be generated in
Right.
HR system. Correct?
HR system, yes.
Okay. Now my question is, will that all 1 lakh users will have access to SAP HR system? I mean SU01 record.
No, I'm confused here actually.
See,
Okay, I'm confused
okay,
because
I'll
our
give you,
ECC system is the HR system. Huh, yeah, yeah.
I'll give you two examples. There is a user who has HR master record only. Okay.
Okay,
He does not
okay.
have SU01 record in HR system. Clear?
Clear, yeah.
Can that user log in into HR system?
He has HR system record, no?
No. Only when you have SU01 record in a system, then only you can log in into it, because you don't have a user ID and password to log in, correct?
Okay.
Don't get confused. These are two different records. HR master record is different from user master record.
Yes, correct. User master is SU01, HR master is PA20.
Correct. PA20, right? So I am saying one user is having only PA20 record. He does not have SU01 record. Can he log in into SAP system?
No, he'll need SAP ID, I mean SU01 ID.
Correct. So my question now, my thing is, TCS employees, if they are 1 lakh, all 1 lakh will have PA20 records.
Acha. Okay, okay. Now it's clear. Yeah.
But all 1 lakh will
The
not have
employee ID,
SU.
the partner won't have password to log.
Partner
Okay, okay. Got it.
employee ID will be there for every user, but not SU01 record for every user.
Correct, correct. Okay, got it.
So if he really needs access to HR system based on the department to which he belongs to, so the GRC system will create the user in HR system also if required.
Okay.
Otherwise the general access will be given to him, like ECC, BW, etc. will be given to him.
Yep, yep.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, this is very actually complex for trigger concept actually. So let us go to the path and I'll tell you what has to be done there in this step basically. If HR trigger is really implemented, so click on this maintain settings for HR trigger. Okay, so here in this step you have to maintain actions actually. What is an action ID basically? So let us say I will take, so we'll write a logic in such a way. Action 1 means a new HR master record is created. For example, we are treating that as action 1. Action 2 means change record of HR master. We are changing the record of it. Action 3 means, let us say, deleting the record of HR master record. So these three actions have to be created, and now I'll put it here, action ID 1 for example. Then request type to be triggered in GRC system will be new account. So I'll keep it as new account here. Similarly, for every action ID, for 1 you are mapping with new account, for 2 you will map with the change account, for 3 you will map with the delete account, delete record, delete account. So first these action IDs have to be created, in which system and all those things. So once you fill this, then you need to go to sub-step, in which system, what all the details, so what all to be fetched from HR system, name, email ID, already these all details will be pulled directly from HR system. So this is how the data will be filled in the access request. Clear everyone? So for every action ID, the request, what type of request has to be created in GRC, and the data regarding the filling of access form, like first name, last name, mandatory fields, they will be filled automatically from the HR system itself. And regarding the roles will be pulled as per the department he's selecting. In the HR master record, he say he belongs to some org unit called sales. Under that, he is under that sales as supervisor. So what are the roles to supervisor under sales? That roles will be automatically pulled, assigned to the user in the access form. So this is all a very complex design. First of all, ARM is complex. If HR triggers is implemented, that would become more complex actually. Complicated design actually. Okay, so rough idea. This is not exact thing, because this is a lot has to be done from the HR side, and we have to take those values regarding action IDs and all those things, and then we need to maintain in GRC. Okay. Right. And then the second one, which is called as maintain service level agreements. So service level agreements, SLA shortcut. Maintain service level agreements stands for which is called as SLA in shortcut. So this SLA can be defined based on the process ID, that is workflow type. It can't be defined based on the request type. So here when you go inside, basically regarding the timelines I'm talking about. Okay, let me create a new one. For example, short description for your access request one. For your access request workflow, process ID. The process ID means, I told you, workflow types. There are 10 types of workflows. The first one, access request. Now SLA type, number of days, and then let us keep it as 5 days. Number SLA days, save it. So now what is the meaning of this is, if any request is submitted under this workflow, access request workflow, it has to be done in within 5 days. That is the requirement. Clear everyone? Like this, for every workflow type, we will be defining an SLA. Yes, any doubt here?
This SLA type is complete. Yeah, this SLA type is complete workflow or only one path?
Complete workflow in means?
Means like if the user is submitting the user request, the all level should be approved within 5 days or only one level?
No, as a
SLA
whole,
process is
all levels, all
oh,
levels.
okay.
Say for example, in the stage I told you, 3 stages are there: manager stage, role owner stage, and security stage. Once a request is submitted to manager, he doesn't need more than 24 hours to approve a request, correct? So if you treat 1 day with the manager, 1 day with the role owner, 1 day with the security, it should take 3 days, but I'm giving here ample time. 5 days I'm giving.
Okay.
So as a whole, the workflow. This is not used actually. We cannot, because all the escalation matrix and all can be triggered in our access request. So we don't need this SLA. Not a mandatory step, but in interviews if they ask you, they can ask you a question like, can we define SLA based on the request type? Like new account SLA should be 3 days, delete account SLA should be 1 day. Can you define like that? No, it is not possible. As a whole access request workflow, whatever the access request it could be of any type, the SLA will be 5 days here. So based on the workflow type, we can define SLA, not based on the request type. Some companies generate SLA reports based on this data only, whether the SLA has been breached or not. So based on this data only, the SLA reports can be generated. Okay. And the next step, define request type. Very important step. Let me go inside. Define request type. So there are SAP delivered request types are there. These the request types whatever available here are SAP delivered. Suppose let me show you how many request types are there. So I don't come here. So these are the available request types, and each number is given to it. New account, change account, delete account, lock, unlock user, emergency user access, and remaining are related to other categories like create risk, update risk, delete risk, SOD review, user access review, mitigation controls, request types. These are other request types to other workflow related. So you have to correctly map the request types under correct workflow type. What do you mean by that? Just give me a minute. So I was saying here, the request types have to be correctly mapped under the correct process ID or workflow type. Like example, access request means these are all first 6 will fall under access request, and this if you can see this one, create risk will not fall under the access request. So this has to be modified. So that is what I'm saying, correctly map them. So it falls under, as it is related to risk, so it falls under risk approval workflow. So in this fashion. And update risk also should not be under that. So it should be under this one only, access risk approval workflow. Delete risk also should be under access approval. It is fine now. Now create function should not be under risk approval. It should be under function approval workflow. So just you have to modify them accordingly. So they are wrongly mapped here. You need to ensure they are correctly mapped. Now this is mitigation assignment, means there is a workflow for mitigation assignment. Just map them there. Mitigation assignment. Update.
Sridhar, is this wrongly mapped with SAP only? By SAP only?
No, that comes by default actually.
Okay.
Based on the BC sets activation. So sometimes they are correctly mapped, may not be correctly mapped also. So our duty is to check them, they are correctly mapped or not.
Okay.
Role approval. this should be under role. So role, control assignment, delete function, update risk. This should be under UAR review, user access review. SOD review should be under SOD review. Right. So we are done.
And if you want to add a new request type, can we create customize one and map to any of the process
Yes,
ID, right?
yes, you can create. Give an example, we'll do that. What request type you want? A new one.
Like a validity extension of user.
Validity extension we don't have in SAP GRC.
Like we can't create a new one and map to something.
What is the new one? What new one?
I meant to say, like there is something like a new account, change account, right? In that way, can we create a customized one and map to any of the process ID?
Yes. So new entry. Give a name to it. New underscore user underscore creation. To which process ID you want to map this? Workflow type only. So map to it. Access request. Active. Save it. Okay. Now it is done. It is there in your list. But this is request type number, given assignment with 124 number. Under that, so under this request type, what actions you have to be set up also. You have to tell to system what action has to be taken under this request type, new user creation. Select actions now. Double click on select actions. What is happening? So where is that? This is the one, 124. Select action. Okay. Now click on new entries. These are the available actions in SAP. So under new user creation request, what action should I select here?
Can you scroll down?
What action should be put here now?
Change and unlock user.
What is the heading we kept? Request type heading. What is the
Okay,
request?
new user. Okay, user creation.
So what is the main duty of user creation?
To create user.
Create user. Then after creating user, what you will do?
Update the mandatory
Assign roles and then defaults. Save it. So what actions have to be taken place, you need to note them, maintain them under that.
Okay.
So if you see the standard ones, now for example, I'll go for new account or change account. Actions, change user and assign object, means assign role. Delete account, actions, delete user, only delete user, nothing else here. So it is not, so this is where the logic comes from. When user is selecting new account, user gets created. When user is selecting change account, user gets modified. How the system knows to modify him or what to change or create based on these actions defined here under the request type.
Okay. Okay.
And this is also important from one more point of view. When you open the access request, let me open access request. My home, access request. This form is exclusively for user administration, correct? Here request type you have. What are the values you can see here? See here. The one which we created and we have mapped it for new user, that is access request approval. It is also visible under the request types here. You can decide what request type should be visible here based on this request types here. Suppose I want only new account, change account, delete account, only three. What you have to do is here in this step, just remove them as active, remaining all. I am removing remaining all as not active. Under this request workflow, only three are active now. New account, change account, delete account. Save this record. Now you go back and open the form again. Now reopen the form. You just see three accounts here. Clear everyone? This is a very important one step. Any doubts in this step? So correctly map the request types to the respective process IDs and workflow types. So example, this is example. Access request approval workflow will have following request types. Risk approval workflow will have following request types. Function approval workflow will have following request types. Okay. So that's about the request type step. Now maintain priority configuration. This is not a mandatory step. Priorities means just whatever the priorities we set, the system will take them as a priorities. But let me show you, if I click on new entries, what exactly. So for a process ID you will be setting a priority, nothing but, again based on the workflow type. For access request, what is the priority of access request? You can just type it here, like is it medium, high or critical, you can just write it here. So whenever you submit any access request, that will come under this priority settings. So not a mandatory field here, so it is not of much relevance as well. Now employee type, this is also not mandatory, but in some clients what they do is they show differentiation between a full-time employee as well and contractor. So full-time employee in the sense a permanent employee, we call FTE generally, and then contractor, some companies treat differently contractors and full-time employees. So if that is the case in terms of access request also, suppose some companies are following like an extra additional approval is required for employee like a contractor, and that full-time employee does not need that approval, additional approval for contractor, whereas that approval is not required for a contractor. So in that case we have to define how many types of employees are there in the organization. Based on the employee type we can connect the employee type with your configuration. Like workflow will vary for a full-time employee and workflow will vary for contractor. Clear everyone? So let me define here so that I'll see full-time employee, contractor. I defined the two types, so we can use them in future if needed, otherwise they'll be staying there. I'll tell you later where they can be used. Okay. Okay.